Hello, and in this video we're looking at paper 2, question 4, comparing viewpoints, and we'll look at how to plan and write your response for this question. So it's 16 marks, it's 16 minutes, and you can use the Peter method for paragraphing or Vmec method for paragraphing. We'll explore both of those in a minute. The idea for this one is to comment on and interpret the writer's ideas and perspectives in both texts. Like question 2 on paper 2, it looks at both texts. In question 2, you are summarizing subject only. And in question 4, you're interpreting the writer's viewpoints, perspectives, opinions, feelings, ideas on the subject across both texts. It could be similarities or differences, so please read the question carefully. Make sure that you're picking appropriate supporting evidence from both texts for your quotations, and comment on the writer's methods used in the quotes to convey their ideas. So you're picking relevant quotes, and in those quotes you will find language and structural features. Please mention those to embed your quotes, and then explore the quotes with clear explanations and then more perceptive analysis. What to focus on in the question? The task is designed for students to build on your inferential understanding of synthesis of ideas. So you're comparing ideas, synthesis, and you're inferring, suggesting what is going on in the story and how the writer has used language features or structural features to get their point across to you about how they feel. And your job is to find those, select those quotes, find those language or structural features, and then infer and explain to the examiner what the viewpoint of the writer is in each text. Some students don't address the how, they don't use the language features or structural features. So we're looking at more of a PEE or PESEL answer here, but try to use Peter or Vmec to access all of the marks across the mark scheme. So embed those language and structural features from the quotes into your answer for the higher marks. Break down the question. It's always about the whole of source A and the whole of source B, but not all of source A or source B. It just means the answers are in there somewhere, and you can take the relevant answers from anywhere in the texts. Compare how the writers convey their similar or different perspectives. Always look for whether it's similarities or differences, and about what. Always look at the end of the question on cycling in the city. Make sure you pay good attention as well to the bullet points. It will give you hints and tips of what to do and what to look for in your answer. If we explore Peter paragraphing for a second, point, evidence, technique, explain, reader. This is a good way to access all 16 marks for paper 2, question 4. You're making a clear point that answers the question from source A, backed up with short quotations, and embed the language and structural features in there so that you can explore what the writer here methods are in the text, and then explain why the writer has that viewpoint that answers the question. Are they happy, sad, fearful, nervous? Are they scared or joyous? Explain fully your opinions of the text overall, and link back to the reader, which is you. We don't want anything about readers reading on or creates images in readers' minds. You are the reader, you are the one reading it, so make sure that you explore your thoughts and your feelings on the quotes that you have chosen to answer the question. We could also look at Vmec paragraphing. They both have access to all the marks on the mark scheme. And this is viewpoint, evidence, method, explain, compare. They both do exactly the same process. You do a Peter paragraph for source A, and then you do another one, a Peter paragraph for source B. And it's the same here. You do a Vmec for A, and then you can do the same thing for source B. So we look at the viewpoint, a clear viewpoint that answers the question from source A, backed up with short quotations, and then embed the language and structural feature into your answer to show that you've got a clear idea of the writer's methods, and then really focus on deep and clear explanations and analysis of why the writer has the viewpoint they do in that story. Again, are they happy, sad, scared? Why? What is the point of that paragraph or that viewpoint that the writer is trying to get across to you? Make sure that you spend most of your answer on your personal thoughts and opinions. That's where the bulk of the mark is. Don't have long quotes that you don't embed and have nothing to say about. Have short quotes that you embed with language and structural features that you have lots of thoughts about. And the way to do that is to extend out the why. Don't move on until you've finished answering the strands of why. They feel this way. Why? Because this happened. Why? Because this had to happen. But why? Always ask yourself why until you have run out of things to say. Then you are ready to move on. Things to avoid, please make sure that you avoid writing about ideas in the text, but not about the writer's feelings of the subject in the text. Don't misread the question. Please make sure that you do write about the effect of language. If you're going to use language and structural features, talk about the effect of it. How does it deepen your understanding of the writer's perspectives of the subject they are talking about? And don't get questions 2 and 4 mixed up. They're very simple to get mixed up. It happens quite often, but we must avoid it because the marks don't transfer with it. Question 2 is a summary of the subject. Question 4, you are comparing the writer's viewpoints of the subject. So it's more inferential, which is why it's worth twice as many marks and you get twice as much time as question 2. So make sure that you understand the differences. Make sure you focus on those perspectives as well as the big ideas that the writer is trying to share, the morals or the messages behind the story that they're trying to get across to you. Make sure you always link to methods. Make sure that you always select relevant quotes that answer the question. And try to think about concepts or ideas. Flip the quote. The writer isn't always happy or sad. They aren't always believing or disbelieving. Their mood will change throughout. The best students, the higher ability students, will recognize that people change depending on what happens to them, the experiences and situations they go through, or that people will change their minds for them. They will help them along the way to change their opinions. No one is ever one thing, so do flip the quote and look at it from the opposite angle, from a different character's perspective maybe, or a different writer's perspective, to try and make sure you can look at all aspects of the story. For certain planning, make sure that you think about source A and make sure you make a clear statement about the viewpoint, back it up with a quote, explain why the writer has that viewpoint, embed the language and structural methods that are being used, and link to source B. And if it's similar, use also, similarly. Maybe if it's different, using contrast, however, on the other hand, whereas. But the process of paragraphing for both source A and source B would be Vmec or Peter paragraphing, and you do that twice. Same process here, it's just a slightly different layout. Peter or Vmec paragraphing. Okay, so as you're writing up, think about the writer's perspectives. What is it about the writer that they're trying to communicate with you? How does the writer do that? Are they happy? Are they sad? Okay, are they tense? Is the piece quite fast or slow? How is it similar or different to the other source? So if we look at it this way, the writer's perspectives are different because, so that you can use these as sentence starters and writer's frames. The writer of source A says, and then your answer to the question, this suggests that, this infers that, this makes me think that. On the other hand, however, also, source B. So you have writer's stems as well as paragraph planning on the previous slides for how to construct your answer to this one using Peter or Vmec paragraphing. From the examiner's report, students are referring to writers' methods in an increasingly integrated way. The best students seamlessly move between the perspectives and methods in their wide-ranging analysis of the text. So one thing that the examiner's report suggests is that students are embedding this better now. The students are getting a good viewpoint of feeling from the writer's thoughts on the subject, but then embedding the language and structural features in there better. So please do that, because if more students are doing it, then the quality of the answer rises, which means the grade bound could be compromised and go up if the responses for this are getting better and stronger each year. Students frequently commented on the changes and explored these in depth, which means that the answers had better quality of response. Plan your answer, be specific to the question, have lots of opinion on it. Don't just rush in and not thinking and make it up as you're going along. You're never going to hit your mark scheme doing such things. Okay, so if we have an example of the mark scheme here for a level 3 clear and relevant, this hits all of our mark scheme. It has comparisons of ideas, it has writers' methods, and it has in purple there clear understandings of similarities. In source A, Walker believes that car drivers make cycling more dangerous than it should be. He addresses the drivers directly. Remember that these are human beings, and using emotive words such as flesh and bone to persuade readers to understand that cyclists are real people who can get hurt. There is a similar perspective in source B when the cyclist is prey to the Victorian cab drivers. But whereas Walker uses a serious tone, the writer in source B uses a humorous tone by stating that her life would be nicer if they didn't try to kill her. The effect of using humor is that the writer comes across as more confident than Walker because she makes a joke out of the dangers of cycling in traffic. So we're looking at tone, we're looking at embedding the quotes with methods such as emotional language and humorous tones and serious tones. And we're looking for similarities or differences, which are similarities. So we have all of our mark scheme covered here. And that is how a writer will achieve the highest marks. So for this question, just to recap, 16 marks, 16 minutes, use Peter or the Vmec process to explore fully the writer's ideas and perspectives in both texts. And please be mindful for the top marks that while you're embedding language and structural features in your answer, the students will recognize that opinions can change.